I'm Jordan Roth, and you're watching Dallæsthetic podcast. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the 8th episode. And joining me today is Hahn of Cydonia Gallery, and she is with me today to discuss the Guerrila Girls exhibition that will open in Dallas at the Safe Room at the Texas Theater beginning on Friday. So welcome to Dallæsthetic, and tell us a little bit about I guess the exhibition, or what brought the exhibition to Dallas.
Well, first, thanks for having me here,
Oh,
and it's my pleasure to be here. So, I think I get this question a lot, and I don't really know what prompted it, but I gave myself a report card.
Really?
So I gave myself a report card. I crunched some numbers, did the statistics, and I realized that this entire time we've been extremely supportive of women artists, and we didn't do it based on assimilation. I always chose the work based on the quality of the idea, or maybe ideas that I really thought hadn't been shown in our region before. So once I gave myself a report card, I really felt I was still very intimidated to contact and reach out to the Guerrila Girls, but I reached out to the Guerrila Girls. I gave a small pitch, gave them my report card, and we started a dialogue. And I think that I expressed that I was really interested in having an exhibition with them, and we've been working together for several months. And I think it was time for us to do something that was a little bit, that showed another component of the values that we care about. Obviously, with my gallery, my mission statement really focuses on contemporary conceptual art, but there was another component that I felt that I hadn't addressed, and it was a political component. And we really don't try to choose or work with a lot of political artists, but this was a subject that was really important to us. And I think over time, and in an indirect way, without directly saying it, we've been supportive of equality and gender parity. And I felt like it was time to reach out to the all-stars who've been doing that for 33 years. So to me, it's been an honor. And for my staff, it's been an honor to work with them, to create even this type of short relationship with them. They're not going to be represented by any dealers, and I was really grateful that they made an exception to work with us, because they generally work with institutions.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised to see the press release a couple months ago. I was at your very first exhibition, and
I remember.
Yeah, so there's kind of a duality or relationship between that and the current show. Can you kind of tell me about how there's a parity there?
So I really consider this show, I think on the surface it's about feminism, but this show is what I refer to as a bookend to my first show. And that was in our inaugural show. It was called XY, Representations of Contemporary Masculinity. That was based on a thesis back when I was a curating student. Okay. So when I was in school, I think around 2007, there were the Elizabeth Sackler Center for Feminist Art had opened, so there were a lot of feminist exhibitions, global feminism, and then WAC. And I think they just grouped women together and celebrated women. And I also studied all 3 waves of feminism, and we had to present a curatorial concept. And I said, well, what about the men? Because not all guys are misogynistic and chauvinistic, and
they're not all bad boys.
They're not all bad, and they're not all trying to take away rights about our uterus. So, and I think that I had also seen that men had evolved, and not all men in the creative field are like this, but I really felt that men had evolved, and sometimes sometimes there is some men, I imagine that there's a component of invisibility. Mm-hmm. When the focus is so much on women and their oppression sometimes. So I said, hey, this is a way to kind of look at masculinity. And so the research that I did was based on Thelma Golan's Blackmail, which is, I think, one of the most important examples of a curated exhibition that really changed the way that we looked at something. I think that's a prime example of what curating is. You bring together pre-existing works and you show people something else like that. She created something outside of the works that was wholly her own. It wasn't a prescribed concept where she said, hey, I'm going to talk about black men, and then make some work and get black artists to make work about being a black man. Those works were already pre-existing, and she could tap into that undercurrent. Okay. So it's black male, and then a woman named Helene Posner had curated something called The Masquerade of Masculinity, where she talks about some theories about how gender is more of a social construct. You know, the difference, any difference between us is not necessarily innately within us, but that society teaches us how to be ladylike or male-like, and how men maybe want to cry, but they don't feel that they can afford that luxury. So
and that's all beginning to really change big time.
Yeah. So and that show, I had that idea I thought was really important, and so that was my first show, and I put that together. I pulled a catalog together. I pulled a bunch of different artists together, and it was about men, and I made sure to put one female artist in there. So I think that was another statistic that I was really proud of. Every single show has included women, even when it was about masculinity, because you can't talk about men without talking about women.
It doesn't make
sense.
That's
a Bourdieu kind of idea. Like, you can't have one without the other. How can you don't know that you're you unless you're sitting next to somebody else. There has to be, you can't define something without borders and limits.
Right.
So,
the frame.
Yeah, exactly. So I felt that it was time to do something about women, but the more that if you actually think about it some more, I believe what Hillary said, women's rights are human rights. I think when people are protesting, I don't think they're protesting for a luxury like, you know, Showtime and HBO. They're protesting for something that they really feel like are basic human rights. So the Guerrila Girls have been doing this for over 3 decades, since we were, you know, little puppies and little kittens and very, very young. And I can't believe that they've been doing it that long. And when I've watched interviews with them, they can't believe they've been doing it that long, but they wouldn't be doing it unless there was a need.
I need to see the interviews. They're wearing masks.
They're always wearing masks. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was their fangirl. I think I will say I did have a phone call with one of the Guerrila Girls, and I think I squealed high enough to where I probably talked to a couple of my dogs. So there was a couple of moments of like excitement, and before we could actually talk about the logistics of the show, and before we were talking about the reason they even called me. I don't think they called me so I could fangirl on them, but
yeah,
it was very. It's a meaningful show for us, because I think it's, of all the subject matters that I've covered, you know, we've talked about sympathy, we've talked about forgiveness, we've talked about time, we've talked about history. Each of my artists have a different subject matter, and this subject it's the most important subject that we've touched, which is it's about the discrimination against gender, and women are actually more than half the earth. So there was nothing that was more relevant, no other subject, you know. We can talk about like reality and what's real in real life and what's real in social media and what's important nowadays. Our values are changing, but that affects people, but on an innate level.
It's really violent if the majority of the population of the planet is being discriminated against.
Yes, yes.
Know? So I mean
it's from the beginning of the Anthropocene.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like out of the tradition of kind of brute force, and then what else? I don't know. I mean,
well, I watched this comedian, Eric Griffin. He was like, hey guys, we've had a good run for the past 3,500 years. It's all right. It's right. Okay. He joked about it. 3,500 years is a long time to rule the earth.
Yeah. Take a break, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think,
take a century off.
Yeah. You can afford to take a century off. Yeah. It's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work. Yeah.
So you sent them, we won't go into too much detail, but you sent up a report card and explain, that's something that they've done in their practices, those report cards. What is that exactly?
So they take a look at all of the exhibitions, and they look at your roster and how many men and women have you shown. So I think a lot of galleries that we understand as almost institution-like, they're not representing women even 50%. They're not anywhere near that. And they look at museums, the famous, I think the most iconic Guerrila Girls image is the one of the Grand Odalisque, and she's wearing a gorilla mask, and it shows how many women are in the Met and how the majority of the women that are in the Met are in the nude. So when you represent women in the nude in a cultural institution, you're saying that this is how to, you're letting generations, you know, afterwards understand, like, women are to be eroticized. They're not necessarily, they're not, if they're in the nude, really, can you appreciate them for what their contributions could be? And what are you missing out when you only understand women in this capacity?
And museums are kind of how you illustrate, you know,
your values.
Yeah, exactly.
Your values, yeah. A museum, I think, is like the treasure chest or the safe of your house, like the crown jewels of your culture. So every major city is going to have a museum, and then the curators are supposed to decide, like, what was important in our culture that we should historicize. What are we thinking about for posterity? What should the other generations know about this moment in time that we should value, that they should carry forth, and how to live their lives?
Yeah, so you have Washington crossing the Delaware, and then someone naked on a settee.
Pretty much, yeah. They're always, pretty much, and they're always somebody's muses. And I love Manet. Manet is the artist that really, a lecture on Manet in a survey class made me want to have a career in art. But who goes to a picnic naked?
Right.
Maybe it was that. Maybe that's how it was back in the day, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Yeah, I don't think it's about the picnic.
No, I don't think so either. So, so you did a report card of your own gallery.
Yes.
And what did you find? And you found that traditionally you have shown mostly women?
It was kind of unbelievable. I think we have shown, oh gosh, I should be better at my report card, but 71% of the time, 71% of our exhibitions were, of our solo or two-person shows were for women. We showed women 83% of the time, including in all of our fairs. And then in all of our exhibitions combined, we showed women 69% of the time. And then in 2016 and 2017, we had an entire year dedicated to women artists. And it wasn't art about being a woman or how hard it is to be a woman or the oppression or the discrimination. They were just artists that we really believed in. So I made sure that in all the fair presentations, we curated women, and in all of our exhibitions that year, they were all solo shows for a woman.
That's remarkable. I need to score our gallery. I think we'll fare fairly well. We did a women's exhibition last year, and it was, is there going to be a theme, or, you know? And then it was like, well, no, we just need to do one. And it was a proud moment when there were 33, I believe, artists in the show. Most of them represented, and it was just wonderful, wonderful work. And one thing that was interesting is we had an artist exhibiting who does kind of, I guess it's a male gaze, and she's one of very few artists that are doing that are women, actually.
Yeah.
And it was kind of in the center of the gallery, and an intern said, well, does it make sense to have a picture of a man in the middle of a women's show? I said, yes. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
So
it's another layer. Why does it have to be all one-dimensional and just fits under an umbrella? The gallery is a space for investigation of ideas and questioning. So it's almost like having a control. And
right.
When I was in grad school, my mentor told me that all you're doing right now, and this was a critique on the original idea of the masculinity show, was he said, all you're doing right now is you're just proving your hypotheses. To really have a good show, you have to test your hypotheses. So that has stayed with me. Sometimes it's like one or two sentences that really impact how you understand art or, you know, other things, other values in your life. And so that's always stayed with me whenever I curate a show and when I try to offer insight to other people that are wanting to curate or have put together exhibitions. I think it's important that you're adding another layer, because you just don't want work that's one-dimensional. So why should your curating be one-dimensional?
How cool is it to like come back and do your thesis as an exhibition at your own
I don't
gallery?
know if it's cool. I think it's like
hard.
It's hard, and maybe you question your idea in different ways. You know, that's, I think.
But you got to realize it and probably perfect upon it, improve upon it, maybe.
I would say that my curating has improved significantly since that first exhibition, but I think that Anthony Bourdain had he had a bunch of great quotes, but his quote was, he said, there is something really special, maybe for me, it's one of the best parts of life or being in our profession, is when you have an expectation and the reality lives up to the expectation.
Yeah.
Most of the time it doesn't. And I won't say that first exhibition was perfect, but I've been able to enjoy that. And I think in our profession, when you have a vision for an exhibition or maybe a fair booth and it turns out exactly the way that you imagine it, and you have the reception that you imagine, because we always imagine, you don't put together shows thinking that people are going to criticize it in a negative way. But when you are received in that way and they can actually understand your vision, I don't think there's a greater high in our profession, or maybe in anybody's profession.
That's what we do it for, kind of.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, as a chef, if you create something and your guest or your client actually understands it, and whenever they're about to, when they describe it back to you, that's the most rewarding. Yeah. I think it goes back to what Supreme Court Anthony Kennedy said when he was talking about gay marriage. He says, it's like you have a call out to the universe, but when you hear it back, that's everybody's. That's what love is. Like, we all have that fear that nobody's going to answer us back. So I think all creative people send a call out to the universe, and you hope that you'll hear something back. Yeah. And I don't think you get to hear you're a master if you can hear the crowd back. But sometimes the highs are actually extremely intimate, and you hear like one really good voice answering back. And that's what keeps you going. Yeah, being understood as a curator is, or as any creative person, I think. Because you're creating, and everyone creates. Yeah. But to want to be able to share that and give it out, that's something to hear it back. And you need to hear them say it in their own words, because when you say it in your own words and you tell them what to look at, that they're not right. You're taking their participation out of it. It's not so voluntarily anymore. Yeah. No, I completely agree. And so that's interesting that you've actually identified like the various themes so clearly that you've had. You'll revisit some of those themes, I assume, over time? I don't know if it's necessarily revisiting. I think it's more like some themes just stay with you. Yeah. Or maybe your life, I don't know if there's some kind of greater force, but they really would need you to relearn that theme, I suppose. Oh, I think so. Or some things, it becomes part of your compass. Maybe not necessarily your moral compass, but your values, they're not supposed to change, but maybe they can evolve. So this show, it's timely, that's for certain. Yeah. But it sounds like it was going to happen at some point eventually, or at least you were going to focus on this topic. But like, what makes the Guerrila Girls so timely now? Oh, look at that. We live in the golden era of political activism. I think that things have been, as a woman, and I feel that the Me Too movement, how it has actually snowballed. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to create the vocabulary to even talk about these things. Right. You know that something's not really a problem when our culture doesn't even create the words or the vocabulary for that. And now we live in a time where we're actually going to put words, and we're going to say, hey, this is why it's wrong. Right. Just because we don't have the word for it doesn't mean that it's not wrong. So it's the same as, I think Foucault's the one that says that justice is an infinite line, and the law is just points on that line. So you can't just wait for the law to decide. The law is not the only thing that defines what's wrong. And some people use that. I feel like it's sometimes unethical people that are using that. Too often. So, or people come up to that where the edge is. Yeah. And it's it's because it's illegal that we have to do this, or it's because you know what's wrong. Yeah. If you're looking at my body language and I'm unhappy, you should probably stop doing it. And if I'm making you unhappy, we should probably table that discussion. I mean, it's not about discomfort necessarily, but it's definitely about like respecting the boundaries of the other person. So I feel like that. I think that's important. And we're as you're on that topic, the Guerrila Girls extended me the offer to debut a Me Too poster. So you'll be seeing that at the exhibition.
So you mentioned that we don't have the words, and it struck me when you said that still the hashtag Black Lives Matter or the hashtag Me Too, and then what's the there's another one that's come about with the feminist. Well, it's not even feminism. It's just the Hollywood. There's one for
Time's Up.
Time's Up.
And their hashtag Resist. I mean,
yeah,
we live
all
in
of this is when it's the resistance and saying Time's Up and Me Too. When these things are so powerful that you don't even have time to define it, it's really amazing, and it can't even be loud enough. I don't think. The Guerrilla Girls, there need to be more, or, something.
Yeah, I think they've been doing it since there were no hashtags. They've been doing it pre-social media. They've been doing it before there were social justice warriors. They've been doing it because they felt that there wasn't injustice, and they took upon that task. And I don't think it's a glamorous task. I think, like, at this point, they're so famous, and they had mentioned that after they turned 30, after 30 years, they really started getting a lot more attention. But now, it's more like obviously I have like a fangirl kind of reaction to them. But beyond that, I think that they've been doing it this whole time, and nothing's more powerful than an idea whose time has come. So this is the moment that we should really be
the scales
echoing.
Have tipped. It's gotten more than ridiculous, and it's interesting. Art usually ends up being kind of like, often in a lot of situations, art ends up being the thing that the first kind of call for change often. And so, well, there have been several, but when we have politicians, saying things that you would have thought were previously unthinkable, you have to have somebody contesting that. And from the art world, you had the Guerrilla Girls kind of on the inside, talking about doing report cards in museums and talking about equality and representation and things like that. But then it got really serious when everything's happened recently. Trump got elected, and then you have Me Too. And so the Guerrilla Girls did a poster on Trump, and I thought, it's up on the screen.
And this came out, I think, when he was campaigning. So this was before the election, I believe.
But it wouldn't have even. It's
or
just
maybe
as
it was
relevant
like
now,
right after the.
But it's just as relevant now.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was almost like. Looking into a crystal ball with some of the issues, like the family separation.
Some of it hadn't even really come up yet.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking that they almost looked into, they could see like what could happen, the far extreme of that it seemed like they were I think they were trying to be exaggerative and kind of funny, but it ended up being
you wouldn't
real.
have known it would be this ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, family separation is what they did during slavery, so it's a little shocking.
I don't even think they did that in the internment camps during World War II.
Yeah.
It's really shocking. Do you know, have the Guerrilla Girls had much impact outside of the art world yet?
That is not something that like I've thought about that, but I've always thought that like political art has always been about outside of the art world.
Yeah.
So, and they try to, I think like even though, because they're artists, because they practice that, then that's the arena and that's a platform that they chose. But
so they're speaking our language, all of us fans, and people that are kind of in the creative world, so that they arm us with things that we can go out there with, right? Maybe.
Well, we're going to function outside of the art world too, and so there's going to be relevance. I think that their issue isn't a niche issue,
right? Which is, I think it's nice and kind of relevant that this is being presented in a non-traditional art space as well. Do you think, was that part of the original proposal?
Yes, I approached Barack and Mary Catherine of the Texas Theater about that, and I said, well, why should why I don't want to be confined to just inside the safe room. Like their work transcends beyond that, and to kind of put it in, even sometimes it's not even, I think that the spirit of their work isn't meant to be within the white cube. Like it has such relevance, and to confine it within art is to really lose some of its power. So I asked to install it, and we want to engage with the people that come in and out of the theater in that historic space, but I also made sure to have Spanish language posters because of the neighborhood that we're in.
Wow, that's terrific.
So yeah, they dug up some out of print posters to make sure that that was a possibility.
That's amazing.
Us.
That's a really thoughtful thing to have done. Jefferson Boulevard.
It's a little Mexico.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, it's kind of a treasure in a sense. I'm always struck by the quinceañera stores.
Yes, at one time I counted 17.
How many are there now?
I don't know. A few of them have gone away.
I know.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere maybe a year ago that some of these stores are known throughout the region, if not maybe the whole country.
Yeah.
And then not every city has that. People travel, great distances to come to Dallas and do that strip. And some of those are disappearing. And, we used to maybe laugh about the income tax stores and all of that, but it's part of the neighborhood, and it's part of the existence that's been there for so long. And I think it's wonderful that you found posters that can speak to the community.
I like the neighborhood that we're in. It's where I have my home and where we've been living for several years, and I think you want to gravitate to where you feel most comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's where I went to a public school that was a very diverse high school, and when I went to college at other places, I didn't feel comfortable if I didn't see other people of different ethnicities.
I love Oak Cliff, and I the further into Oak Cliff I go, the more comfortable I am. I was yesterday visiting an artist in the kind of far south in the neighborhood, and it feels right. It didn't feel like it had been encroached upon yet.
I think there's different pressures, and there's different values, and people are worried about different things, so it makes it really easy. I think I really like the historic homes that are there, and I like the diversity. I like the options there, and I think if you look at Dallas political history and civic history, a lot of people have come out of Oak Cliff.
Oh, yeah.
Even if, despite the reputation it had maybe a few decades ago, but a lot of people for years have, and I think a long time ago, the Dallas mayor lived in Oak Cliff, because there's an old historic home that was the Dallas mayor's home. So there's a lot of history there.
Beautiful, beautiful neighborhoods in Oak Cliff. And, but it is kind of, when you look at the demographics of Dallas and Texas, for sure. Oak Cliff's a more, I think, accurate representation of who we are
versus what
anyway.
Is on TV, Dallas or The Real Housewives, or Who Killed JR,
that's
kind
such
of.
a small percentage.
It's a lot different. Yeah. It'd be like only thinking about LA as like Hollywood.
Right.
There's so many different interesting neighborhoods.
Yeah, because we're not The Real Housewives by any stretch. So back to the Guerrila Girls. So the show will be at the Texas Theater for how long?
We're going to have it run until the end of October.
Okay.
So pretty much a solid two months.
And it'll be open all the time?
We're open when the theater is open, and we're also available by appointment. We're happy to give tours. I've always had that no matter which space I was in. So you just email us, and we're happy to offer you tours or, to meet you there. So
aside from the Spanish language posters, what were some other kind of interesting ideas that you drew upon, or what was your overall vision for curating this?
I think I wanted as much as possible to embody their spirit, because the spirit it's really not about art in the way that I even understood art, because I understood it as worshiping the artist and looking at the artist as a genius. That's such an old stereotype. But we're not looking at a poster and trying to unpack it for insight or figuring out which theory is going to apply to that. it's protest art, so I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure to install it beyond the white cube. Like, the white cube doesn't really apply to their work.
Right.
So we've installed it throughout the Texas Theater, and then we're going to have a few videos that are going to be screened inside the movie theater between 6 and 7, and then Barack's has programmed that movie to go with it, and then the rest of the videos will also be screened on a projector in the bar area.
Cool.
So you're not going to be confined to one space. You can kind of roam around, and you can also, I think what I like is I like for people to appreciate the architecture of that theater and the way it's designed. It's really interesting. It's not like any other movie theater that you've been to. There's little secret rooms. The architecture has changed a lot, and of course, it's a historic site. There's so much history beyond what it's known for.
Yeah.
So it was originally owned by Howard Hughes. That safe.
That I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was originally owned by Howard Hughes, and then the safe room, which obviously they've turned into a gallery. I think that original safe was where. That's an original safe, and
okay. Yeah,
I think they put the safe in there because you can't take it out. So they'd have to tear out the walls. So I think they had mentioned to me that when theaters had started, it was really a luxury for the wealthy to be able to afford to go to.
And they kept the films in the safe, right?
I think they just kept money.
Oh,
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that makes sense too.
They have their own projector room, and there's a whole history behind that. But I don't want to say
what
I don't
it
want
was
to
exactly. Yeah.
Well, I don't know because I don't want to miscommunicate.
Right.
But they have like a special projector room, and there's just so much
cool.
history. There's little pockets that you can kind of go, and there's like different balconies, and you can you can engage the space.
It's really it definitely feels like you're in a different era, but it also feels there's a little bit of kitsch, which I love too. The colors and the carpet and the kind of salmon colored walls, and aren't they salmon colored?
There's a lot of texture, so
there's
we've
a lot
had
of texture.
Obstacles with install, but I think that it's also a neighborhood hangout, and I think the staff there, what I have seen is they seem to really care about their job. It's more than It's almost
like
more than a job.
It's like what we do.
Yeah.
Well, what I hope is that a lot of people will. I love art and movie theaters. We have a project like that too, and it does engage people that don't know that there's going to be art there, or that kind of know that there's art there but they haven't paid attention. And this is going to shake people up. I know it will.
I hope so.
Because the messages are. I mean, text-based art is strong. It's like the hip hop of the visual art world.
I think so. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
And I really think that people are going to take notice, and they're going to tell people about it, and maybe there'll be a little bit of a spike in knowledge about the Guerrila Girls and the messages that they're trying to get across here in Dallas, of all places. You never know; it wouldn't be the first thing that we've stirred up.
I hope so. I think their message is important, and it's obviously it's still relevant. Otherwise, if we had any type of parody, the message it wouldn't be relevant. It wouldn't strike us the same way.
Yeah, and so people they can view their work they have a website, I'm sure, Guerrila Girls. You can search for that.
GuerrilaGirls.com.
GuerrilaGirls.com, and then the show opens Friday. It'll be up for a month. I'm excited about it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big, it's something nobody would thought you could just do, but you didn't just do it. You did a lot of work, and it's remarkable. I can't wait to see it, and I think we'll have a lot of people viewing the show. So thank you for joining us. We're out of time,
Okay.
so we'll have a quick. Before the credits, they'll show images from the Row 2 art show Chaos, which is also coming to a close this weekend. And so everyone enjoy that, and visit Row 2 on Saturday night for the closing reception from 7 to 10. And definitely go see the Guerrila Girls show. Thank you for joining us. It's been fun.
Thank you for having me, Jordan. It's
Absolutely.
my pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Well, bye, everyone.